Hey, welcome to the Double Dropkick Show. I'm Heath Mullikin.
And I'm Mark Whitman.
And in between, we record here a little bit and take a little bit of break. And in between breaks, Mark is on Facebook scrolling through, watching the little videos. And we watched a pretty entertaining video. I don't have Facebook on my phone anymore.
Right.
I am trying the scroll. For me, I'm trying to get away from that. Okay?
Nothing wrong
But
with
you
that.
found a really great chili pepper eating contest. We watched that. And then the next video that pops up is a video of Peter Dinklage, who is an amazing actor, more power to him. And it's just this really inspirational music and his picture, and it's the words, and it's one of those videos. You guys know what I'm talking about. If you're watching this video, you're listening to the podcast, it pulls you in.
It does.
It pulls you in.
I know how the story ends.
Yes.
But I've got to watch them tell it.
And I've seen that video probably 3 times before.
I've seen it before myself.
And he gets to the end, he's like, don't wait. Don't wait to tell the world you're ready. Show it. Do it. The world.
I gave myself permission to fail.
And I'm like, I love it. But never have the words of the greatest motivational speaker of all time been more relevant to our society. And those are the words of the great Matt Foley, who said, what you're going to probably find is you're going to get out in the world and you're not going to amount to jack squat. And we started talking about that, and I said, we just need to record this because I'm just telling you, okay? I hear what Peter Dinklage is saying. The man has accomplished a lot. But I'm just going to tell you, he's got something most of you guys don't have, or a lot of people don't have.
Well, you have it, but most people don't. Oh, you're not talking about the fact. Oh, I thought you're talking about the talent. Yeah, you got the talent. Yeah.
Well, I don't even know if it's talent.
Okay, here's the truth.
Yeah.
Not only does he have talent, he landed a role that could only be filled if you've read those books.
Yeah.
Clint Eastwood couldn't play that role.
Right. Right. They literally were looking for a 1 in a million.
They were, and he's the most talented.
Yeah.
And he's probably more talented as an actor than a lot of people who are twice his size. And I'm not making fun of him. I'm just saying it's true. He does have what they called in the video a condition.
Yes. Yeah.
He's a little person.
Right.
And they needed that for that role on that show.
Yeah. If you don't know what show we're talking about, Welcome to Earth. It's Tyrion Lannister and Game of Thrones. But we're not here to talk about that. We just wanted we wanted you to kind of get a glimpse and hear what we talk about when the cameras aren't rolling.
Like he started to go down this path.
I said, we need to record this.
Like I know a guy that, he went and tried to get a degree in this real specialized field that, it's the equivalent of going to wrestling school and thinking you're going to become the next John Cena.
Yeah.
And the odds are even probably less astronomical.
Right.
And then when that doesn't happen, what do you do?
Right.
What do you do when that doesn't happen, man?
Yeah. Yeah.
When you don't make it.
Yeah.
What do you do?
I think it's a really good question. And here's the thing, okay? Oh, this is going to be good. We've created a generation where we've said, okay, you get a trophy, you get a trophy. Everybody gets a trophy. We're not even going to keep score. Everybody makes it. Everybody's a winner. And so what we've done is we've robbed children of having to deal with disappointment.
Right.
We've robbed people of having to fight and work harder. Well, man, we didn't lose the game. I got a trophy. Why would I need to work hard? I'm going to get a trophy.
But I wanted to do this for a career. When somebody going to give me the opportunity to do it?
Right. Nobody owes us anything.
No, and we've created. You tell people their whole life you can do anything you want to do. If you just put your mind to it, you can be that. You can do that, and that is not true.
Yeah.
That is not true. You can't be anything you want to be.
That's exactly. Yes. That's for somebody to tell me as a child, Heath, you can be anything you want to be. Well, I know for a fact that to be an astronaut, this is something I found out later, to be an astronaut, you have to be between a certain height and another height.
Right.
You have to be between, there is a certain height and a certain weight you have to be an astronaut. And then on top of that, you got to be able to fly, and you got to have good eye, and all this other stuff.
Yeah. I tried to go in the military.
Yeah.
And I couldn't go in the military because as a child I had asthma.
Right. Right.
So why do people feel like serving in the military is not a right in this country?
Yeah.
It's just not.
No.
It's not a right that you have. And they don't have to accept you for whatever reasons that they've decided not to accept people for. And I'm not talking about the issue with the trans. That's not what I'm talking about.
Yeah, right.
Me specifically, I wasn't allowed to go in the military because here's what the recruiter told me: if we were at war right now, we'd take you, but we're not at war right now. We're at peace, and because of that, I can't really.
Right. Listen, I was told when I was a child I could be anything, do anything I wanted to. I just went to the beach, tried to get on a ride, boom, couldn't close it over my fat gut.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the world we live in. Now, on to a wrestling topic that I've been waiting to get into. This is something that's been talked about. We've done what ifs on this show before. We've talked about, what if Hall and Nash hadn't gone to WCW. Today, we're taking a little bit of a different tack, and that is, what if Bret Hart had been the third man? Mark and I have both read the great book, highly recommended, called Death of WCW. In it, they talk about the British Bulldog, that was almost a done deal, perhaps Lex Luger. They talk about all these different people, but I've never heard, and maybe I just haven't been listening or reading the right sources, but Mark, I've never heard anybody really go down the path of what if it had been Bret Hart.
Yeah.
You ever heard anyone have that discussion?
No, because he was under contract to the WWF, or a lot of this happened. All of those guys' contracts had kind of come up around that time, and he wound up signing this huge multi-year deal that they couldn't pay.
Right.
But he had taken that time off, and he came back to feud with Steve Austin.
Yes.
And he had taken time off, basically to get some time off, but really a lot of what that was about was him deciding what he wanted to do.
Yeah.
And deciding because I'm sure there was some.
He had some TV opportunities.
Right. There was that Lonesome Dove show he did for a while. And I think he just wanted to try some other things.
Right.
But no, I haven't heard anybody speculate on what if he had joined the NWO and went to WCW.
So at the same time, around 96, mid-96, Hogan coming up for a contract, Bret Hart coming up for a contract.
Mm-hmm.
So what if Eric Bischoff, he knows he's bringing in Hall and Nash. He knows he needs this third guy. He knows Bret is negotiating.
Mm-hmm.
And he gets Bret Hart. All right. First thing is, do they book Bash at the Beach the same way? I mean, let's start from the very beginning. Do they book Bash at the Beach the same way if it's Bret Hart?
Oh, yeah, I think so. Like, why would you book it any different?
I guess what I'm saying is, when Hogan comes out, he had been in WCW. How can you book that to where... How can you book it where Bret Hart doesn't have to walk to the ring? Where he's just all of a sudden in the ring. Maybe you do a deal, it's the thing, lights go out, come back on, Bret Hart's in the ring, and it's a shocker. Because if Bret Hart walks to the ring, everybody knows he's in the NWO.
So you don't walk him through the ring, you walk him through the crowd.
Okay.
So even the people at home will start to notice the people in the crowd who are going, what? And the people on the other side of the arena are going to see the people in the crowd going, what's going on over there?
So you walk him in on the hard camera side.
Yeah, I bring that
it's brilliant.
Through the people.
Yes. And that's all the people need to know.
Right.
So Bret Hart, fans, you're watching this. The crowd commotion.
All of a sudden you see a pocket of fans starting to make what's going on.
Yeah.
Now everybody in the arena is not watching the match anymore. They think a fight's broke out, or they know here's the third man. The third man's coming down.
Yeah.
Or maybe you just bring him. They go to the ring first, Hall and Nash, and they make the announcement. Here's the third man. It's Bret the Hitman Hart. Boom, and Bret Hart comes out, and then you have a six-way match, and maybe it's Hogan, Savage, and Sting.
Okay. That's another thing.
Yeah.
All right. Let's deal with this. since Hogan here, let's talk about Hogan's involvement in all this.
Uh-huh.
If you're Bischoff and you're bringing in Hart, do you say we're going with Hart and Hogan? It's thank you for what you've done. We wish you well.
Well, you got to know, because you're fantasy booking, obviously, but still there's a friendship between Hogan and Bischoff.
Yeah.
So it's hard to imagine that he would have just cast Hulk Hogan off.
Right.
Because he seemed to be a guy that when he liked a friend of his, he'd take care of it.
Right.
So it's hard for me to imagine. Then again, he also liked Ric Flair at one point until he didn't need Ric Flair anymore, and he got what he needed out of him, which was the introduction to Hulk Hogan.
Well, I guess what I'm saying is if you're Hulk Hogan and Bret Hart takes this spot, maybe you're Hulk Hogan, you're like, I'm 43 years old. Kids are still fairly at that age. And you say, you know what, I had a really good run in WCW. I'm going to be making money off them for a while. I'm going to just go do something else.
Don't you think if Hogan wanted to do that, he would have done that, though? If Hogan could, he'd come back and wrestle Brock Lesnar at SummerSlam.
Right.
Today.
Yeah.
Because that's who Hulk Hogan is.
Yeah. No, that's right.
I mean,
that's
right. Why he was so good is because he wanted that spotlight.
Yeah.
And he'd do anything to stay there. And he did do anything to stay there, including running WCW out of business.
Okay. So let's say, maybe it's the opposite. You bring in Bret Hart. Maybe Hogan takes the Sting spot. Where instead of Sting being the hardcore WCW guy, that's Hogan now. And you don't do the whole in the rafters thing because that's not Hulk Hogan.
Right.
But Hulk Hogan is the one leading the charge.
So for that reason, you don't get black and white. That's where these ripple effects of this, this what-if stuff happens. Now you don't get the black and white Sting.
Yeah. You don't get the black and white Hulk Hogan.
Right. You just keep red and yellow, and people were turning on Hogan. That was one of the reasons that they made the decision to turn him heel, was that he was starting to get more boos and cheers.
Yeah.
People were getting tired of seeing that same routine over and over again.
So maybe as we were looking back, maybe the idea of putting a babyface Hulk Hogan against who were becoming the cool heels, NWO, maybe that would have backfired.
It would have backfired.
And people would have loved the NWO even more.
And no matter what if scenario you come up with, you would have to also, what if Hulk Hogan didn't have the control to say, I'm not doing this?
Right.
He was not in a situation where he had to do anything he didn't want to do.
Well, okay. Well, we're at a point, as part of our fantasy booking, we have signed Bret Hart. He's our third man.
And we have told Hulk Hogan, here's the contract. But
right.
It doesn't have this creative control clause.
Because now we've got the perfect NWO scenario, all three outsiders. We don't need Hulk Hogan as much as we did.
And I'll tell you this, if they go to Hulk Hogan and say, here's the deal, it's going to be less money and you're not going to have creative control, I think he doesn't sign that deal.
Okay.
And I think he leaves.
Okay. So this now becomes a two-part episode. Because we're going to finish, because I agree with everything you just said, spot on. Because we need to finish talking about Bret Hart. But part two of this is what happens when Hulk Hogan goes back to WWF in '96.
What happens to the WWF? Because there's a lot. Because honestly, like Steve Austin is the Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Right.
I know you got that. I mean, why wouldn't you have that? That's like the biggest story in the whole thing, honestly.
Yes. No. Right.
Is that who does Steve Austin feud with to get him to that level?
Right.
Because when Bret Hart leaves, wow. What do you do?
Well, I think we just said.
Oh, you think Hulk Hogan comes back in and he gets...
I don't know.
And maybe, what you do is Hulk Hogan comes into the WWF and you address some of those ECW promos that Steve Austin was cutting as Hulk Hogan. Say, oh, you thought you were good enough and you thought you were bad enough to stay with me and hang with me. Now's your chance. Because I'm here. I heard what you said. and Hulk Hogan makes Stone Cold Steve Austin. And then you have, whereas before it was the working man versus, the evil corporate boss, you have this anti-hero versus this original American hero.
Wow.
And almost to the point where Hulk Hogan returns to we just watched him at the SummerSlam 88.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that he goes out and acts like Hollywood Hulk Hogan to be the heel. He acts like that Hulk Hogan in the Attitude Era.
Oh, yeah.
And the people are they don't want to see it.
But if we've signed him to WCW and there's no Montreal Screwjob, there's no Mr. McMahon.
Right.
So is there the Attitude Era as we know it?
But I think that's what we're talking about with Hogan. You still have Steve Austin being who he is.
Yeah.
This anti-authority, beer swilling, bird flipping.
Yeah.
And you have Hulk Hogan being this
right. No, right.
Red, white, and blue baby face that's actually a heel.
Yeah.
And he does that 6 or 7 years before Kurt Angle comes along, which alters the trajectory of Kurt Angle's career.
Right.
Because Hulk Hogan's already had that gimmick.
Wow. So can we save that for?
But that's what we're what-ifing here, right?
Yeah, I know, but I mean, we can talk as long as we want to. I'm just saying we're not even talking about WCW. I feel like when we were talking about what if Shane Douglas had thrown the NWA belt in, and I was wanting to talk about what the NWA would do, and you were wanting to talk about ECW.
Right.
But I think everything you're saying is absolutely fascinating. I'm saying that warrants its own.
I agree.
Its own focus and episode.
What we just did was go down a path where Bret Hart joins the NWO and Kurt Angle doesn't get the same gimmick.
Right. That's the great thing about these. What I'm saying is everything you just proposed is so amazing, it warrants.
And I didn't even think about this till we started talking.
No, you got here today. What we talking about today, Heath? Did you send me an email? Oh, this dang iPhone, I don't even know how to check my email on it. My dad, we was on the river yesterday. He about dropped his phone, and I had to grab him. And
grabbed him by his nipple, pulled him back in the boat. But when did I start talking like Eric Bowman?
You don't. I mean, I don't have a Mark Whitman impersonation.
It's because I'm an original, baby.
That's right. And when you're an original, the view never changes.
That's right. Let me hear what you got so I can talk about it.
Listen, I just wrote some notes. So at the time, 96. So fans, you're going to get everything it was just a tease. You're going to get a whole nother episode of, we'll book WWF post Bret Hart leaving. So Bret Hart's in, Hogan's out. Mm-hmm. Okay? That's part of this fantasy booking. How does Hogan's absence affect Eric Bischoff now?
I think if Hogan's absence, I think Eric Bischoff is just the same as he always was. I think he still wants DDP to be the champion. And I think now he's behind Hall and Nash and Bret Hart. I mean, those are going to be the guys that he's going to take care of, which he apparently took care of Sting pretty well too. I mean, I don't hear Sting knocking Eric Bischoff.
I guess what I'm asking is Hogan and Bret Hart, and maybe I'm wrong about this, but they have different personalities. But maybe when it comes to wrestling and a lot of money, maybe everybody's trying to get into the ear of the boss.
Oh, you think?
But Hogan played that game better than just about anybody in history.
True.
What I'm saying is,
with Bischoff,
he
didn't play that with Vince McMahon.
So Bret Hart comes in, okay. When guys like Jericho, Malenko, Benoit, Guerrero, is Bret Hart now somebody that's going to convince guys like that to stay? We're not even getting into what the NWO does yet. I'm just saying you've got now at the head of your company, as far as wrestlers, a guy who is viewed completely different than Hulk Hogan. You have got a completely different company. You got a guy who
people like and tend to respect, and I'm going to throw you talking about Jericho and those guys convincing them to stay. There's probably some truth to that. There's also probably some truth to the fact that if he's got enough power and control, Owen Hart goes to WCW.
Right. Owen Hart may be the fourth guy or the fifth guy in the NWO.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Wow. Yeah, the NWO, I think, takes a completely different route.
And I think you get see, they got a Bret Hart in WCW that was coming off of something awful.
Yeah.
And then his brother dies, and they just didn't get Bret Hart at his best. You get Bret Hart in his prime at his best. Him and Sting would have had some really, really good matches.
Right.
Because that's who I see him feuding with.
Yeah.
Sting. That's the logical choice for him to feud.
Right.
Is with Sting.
Right.
And Savage. I think he and Savage would have had some great matches at some point.
So just talking about, again, locker room morale.
Uh-huh.
You remove Hulk Hogan, who's often viewed as a cancer in the locker room, because everybody knows, man, well, Hogan's just going to poo-poo everything. And now
in WCW.
No, right, in WCW, and now you've removed that. And you've removed a lot of everything that everybody hated about WCW. We have now, by signing Bret Hart and letting Hogan walk, we have removed this entire thing from the company.
Right.
So you got a different mood.
So I would say
we're not even getting into booking yet, and we're talking about just going to work. It's like, oh yeah, man. It's like you're
even in that 6-man match. Because one guy we hadn't even brought up yet. Where does Ric Flair fit into that?
Yeah.
You got Ric Flair. You could put him and Sting. And I don't even know that I think maybe you put Savage in the NWO. I know he joined the NWO. But I'm thinking at some point he goes in, and you got like Flair and Arn and Luger and Sting.
Yeah.
Almost. Or even Flair and Arn and Harlem Heat.
Yeah.
Man, there's so much, there's a lot to choose from there. But I would say Flair, Arn, Sting, and Luger are the Steiner brothers and Sting and Luger.
Yeah.
You got a lot of guys there where you can put a few guys in the NWO.
Right.
Keep it. And then you don't. That's the whole show is not about everybody fighting the NWO. That's the main storyline.
Yeah.
Then you still got guys like the Steiners that you can plug into that occasionally.
Right.
With Hall and Nash.
You can still have the Steiners and Harlem Heat wrestling over here on the side, and that's an amazing draw and an amazing match.
Right. Exactly.
But it doesn't have anything to do. Let me ask you this: Hall and Nash getting paid well. But now you add Bret Hart to the mix. He's a different influence on them than Hulk Hogan would have been.
Right.
Does Bret Hart come in? And again, I'm just talking. I'm not even talking about wrestling stuff. I'm talking about is Bret Hart, just his attitude about wrestling, his commitment to wrestling, work, a work rate. Does that kind of permeate in guys kind of want to raise their game and say, when they talked about in the 80s in NWA and said, this guy went out, you knew he was going to have a great match, and we're going to go out there and we're going to top it. That competition comes back in. I don't know.
I doubt it, because here's why.
Right.
I heard Kevin Nash talk one time about how they were at some little show.
Right.
And, some little town with 1,500 people there. And they were talking about doing all this stuff in the match, and I think it was Sting or Luger won. So there's no reason to do all that. There's only 1,500 people here, and we're such and such. We can save that and not do it for them. And and they've said, well, so we figure, well, that's the way it is here. And I've heard it. You rarely ever do you take somebody, and when I use the term worker, I don't mean wrestler. I mean just in general, whatever you do. If you take a really good employee and put them with a really bad employee, thinking that they're going to make the bad employee better, that is never what happens.
That's a good point.
It always makes the good employee worse.
Yeah.
They start working down to the level because they're like, well, this guy's getting paid the same thing.
Right.
Me, why am I?
No, that's such a good. That's such a good point. So we're coming off Bash at the Beach. Shocking thing. And I don't know that Hogan turned the heel. That's one of the biggest stories in wrestling history. But
Can I quote you on that?
Please don't. A lot of people hear what we say on this show and then go say it on their show. Or they hear us call our show, the wrestling you grew up with, and they go call their show that. Is there anybody in WCW? And again, I'm sorry if I'm speaking in broad terms, but I've got a chance to pick the brain of Mark Whitman. And so I'm going to do that. Everybody knows how Bret Hart made Steve Austin. Who at that time, a young guy in WCW, can Bret Hart do the same thing for?
Oh. Man, I'd have to look at the whole roster to know, but you've got it printed out. I would say Jericho's a name that's pretty high on that list that he probably would have wanted to make. Yeah, Brian Pillman, I think definitely.
Yeah.
Maybe. I'm all right. I'm gonna run through some guys here. I don't know that it has an effect on Bobby Eaton, with the exception of a great Bret Hart Bobby Eaton match that I'd like to see. Sting, we talked about Brian Pillman, who he had definitely had an affection for. Maybe he has a good influence on Brian Pillman. Maybe, maybe he does some work for him. I mean, you got Arn Anderson, Johnny B. Bad, DDP.
A lot of matches that we never got.
He'd probably have some good matches with DDP. You got Buff Bagwell. Hey, Steven Regal and Bret Hart would have had some great matches. He's not going to do anything for Flair. Stevie Ray, Booker T, David Sullivan. Man, he's not doing anything for the Nasty Boys, Mark Starr, Big Bubba, Kevin Sullivan, Bunkhouse Buck, Alex Wright. Hey, they wanted to push Alex Wright to the moon. Maybe they'd have jumping Joey Mack, the Shark, Dirty Dick Slater, Scott Armstrong.
You'll get my favorite here in a minute.
Sergeant Craig, Pitbull Pittman, the Renegade, Hawk, Kurosawa, Max Muscle, Disco Inferno.
Oh, you know it when you get to it.
VK Wall Street, Eddie Guerrero. Hey, you talking about who he could have made?
Yeah.
There's a name, Eddie Guerrero.
Oh, yeah.
He would have definitely worked with Chris Benoit and done some stuff. I think he and Malenko would have done
Oh,
something.
yeah.
Flash Norton, Giant Barbarian, Hugh Morris, Rocco Rock, Johnny Grunge, Conan, the One Man Gang, Chris Canyon, David Taylor, Medusa, Loch Ness.
Loch Ness, that's the man. The man who made one appearance that I know of.
Yeah. Well, in America, he was huge.
Well, I know, but he made one appearance in WCW and probably still getting paid.
He's dead.
His family's probably getting residuals from his WCW contract.
He contracted cancer right after he showed up there, and that's why he disappeared. Funny guy.
Those are prayers.
He was Giant Haystacks in Great Britain, and he actually got cancer like right after that.
Oh wow!
And passed away. Now you're all like, "Oh God!"
But you mentioned
this
those
whole
guys.
Routine around Loch Ness, and now I can't do it.
You're such a buzzkill. You've been saving that all day since the thing about the life jacket. That was early this morning. I mean, you mentioned so many great. So, again, let me ask Mark Whitman this question. Mm-hmm. Does WCW, instead of just the first match being this great cruiserweight wrestling match, does WCW become, we've just come out of the Dungeon of Doom, do they do a complete 180 and now we got this great angle and the NWO are bullies, but then Bret Hart can out-wrestle you too?
Yeah, I think so. When I look at some of these names, and I think, man, God, you could have some great matches with some of these guys, man. And maybe they become a wrestling company,
Yeah.
Where they do a lot of wrestling. But I see him wanting to work with Brian Pillman and Eddie Guerrero. I mean, those would be the two names. And Chris Benoit. I mean.
And I think that WCW becomes the opposite. I think in December of 97, November of 97, Roddy Piper's not signing with WCW. He's going to WWF.
Yeah, he doesn't have to because it was all about Hulk Hogan.
Yeah, he's going back to WWF.
The Ultimate Warrior doesn't come back, and they don't have one of those worst matches in history.
Oh, my gosh.
You don't get that. You don't get Ted DiBiase coming over you.
So this happens in July. July 96. July 96. There was a wrestler that debuted in September of 97. So about a year later, Goldberg comes along.
Yes.
So let me ask you, if if it's Bret Hart and the NWO, is Goldberg the same guy?
I think so.
Okay.
Because they didn't debut him to be the NWO killer.
No, that's true.
He was debuted just to go out there and he got over.
Yeah.
And to their credit,
Yeah.
they didn't kill him.
No.
When he got over, they listened to people.
Yeah.
They listened.
Yeah.
And they built him up strong. And they made him a big star. And I think they still would have done that. And I think he probably still would have had the same match with Bret Hart. And he still would have been too stiff with his kicks.
Okay. I hear what you're saying. But Bret Hart now is here a year earlier.
Uh-huh.
He's not coming in after Goldberg's semi-hot. Okay. Bret Hart comes in. He's able to be around Goldberg. They're able to build it. He's able to teach Goldberg.
Okay.
He's able to pull Goldberg aside in the back and say, hey, try it. Because Hogan's not going to do that.
No. They were worried about telling Goldberg how to act to get more money and to drain as much as they could off that company. And maybe with Bret Hart, that's the attitude that changes.
Yeah.
We're all in this to make this company better and make money if it is, instead of let's do what we can do to make as much money, and who cares if the company fails.
Right.
Let's just ride the sinking ship all the way to the bottom.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I honestly think, I don't know. I think there's nothing you can do to change Time Warner executives making the decision they did. There's nothing. There's no fantasy booking that can change that. I do think that what can change is that in the process of time, 96 to 2001, you bring in Bret Hart, maybe Bischoff. It doesn't become about all Hulk Hogan. And maybe Bischoff, they do become a wrestling company, okay? And they become a successful wrestling company. And they start making money, and they're putting on the same quality wrestling, whatever, that people perceive from ECW without the over-the-top violence, maybe.
Right.
And maybe Bischoff doesn't get pushed out. Maybe Bischoff keeps good relationships because he's not buddy-buddy, so to say, with Hulk Hogan.
Uh-huh.
And then maybe when the time comes, the company's doing well, and Time Warner just says, you know what, we're pulling the plug on you guys. Bischoff's like, there's people lining up to buy the company.
Right. I think that does change it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, this company's going to sell one way or the other, but there's something to be sold there.
Yes.
Other than just a tape library. It's not a place that's already been, been set on fire and torched to the ground.
So Bret Hart comes in. Where do you go? I don't even know off the top of my head who the champion is at that point in time in WCW.
Yeah,
Was it Savage?
It's so unimportant.
Right.
To that time.
But do you still put the title? You still put the titles on the outsiders and put the world title on Bret Hart?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's a good way to get them hot.
Right.
And then when somebody beats Bret Hart, you can still do the Sting deal.
Yeah.
But it's Sting and Bret Hart instead, and Bret Hart does the right thing, and it's a great match.
And it's not Sting. It's Surfer Sting, not Crow Sting, because you don't have to do the whole Crow thing.
Right.
Man, that's like a whole. I mean,
or maybe even not Surfer Sting, but you could still be a different Sting. He was growing his hair out. I mean, he was going to change.
Yeah.
He had to change.
That's right.
A little bit.
Yeah,
but
that's
maybe
right.
He's more like what you see today.
Yeah.
When he comes out, where there's a little more color to what he does, but it's not just black and white.
Right.
It's not. Maybe he's using some reds and.
Not the Joker stuff.
Right, not the Joker stuff, but.
So X-Pac comes in. He's the fourth guy. You think Owen Hart's that fifth guy?
No.
Who you think? Who would you bring in?
I don't. But I think Owen Hart comes in eventually.
Yeah. It's. I mean, the speculate. No, it's not speculation. British Bulldog is thinking about coming.
Right.
You think if Bret Hart makes the jump, Bulldog's with him?
Yeah, I think that definitely happens.
So maybe Bulldog's the fourth. Oh,
Yeah.
that's, I mean.
Yeah, there you go.
What? Okay. What if Bash at the Beach, Hall Nash, red, white, and blue British wearing British Bulldog comes to the ring? The way he looked when he was in WCW. He can come in the ring, fans think, oh, maybe he's... And then he's the third guy, and then you hold off a month or two, and Bret Hart's the next guy.
It doesn't have the same impact.
I got you.
Yeah. It just doesn't have the same impact. Because that third man, that was built up and built up and built up, and you don't want to make it a lesser star.
No, right.
And then bring in the top guy. That third man needed to be, because you already had two top guys. You needed that third one because that's what worked.
Dude, Bulldog could have been like the enforcer of the NWO. And that was something they had later on, but it was like it was like Horace Hogan. It was all the no-name guys. Yeah. So we never get that. We probably, you know what we never get? We never get NWO Wolfpack.
That's true.
Thank God.
Thank goodness.
We never get the LWO, the Lucha World Order.
God, that stuff sucked.
We never get Russo.
That Wolfpack stuff was awful.
Oh, that music and just the people talk about the NWO as if it didn't have any.
I know it. Like Scott Norton wasn't a member.
Yeah, I mean, listen, there's only two people that weren't members of the NWO, and it's because they couldn't meet mine and Mark's contractual demands.
That's right.
And if you know anything about WCW in the 90s, that should tell you a lot.
About my contractual demands.
That's right. That's exactly right. We talked about that over lunch. You said, you know what? Hey, this is who I am. Take it or leave it. I had some more notes or whatever. But yeah, I mean, there's nobody else. It's got to be Hogan or Hart there, because like you said, if it's British Bulldog, it's not as
impactful. Old fly on our board there.
It's not as impactful. I mean, that's this one little change, the personality change, the wrestling style changed. It could have changed the course of wrestling.
Yeah. I think that's what we were talking about.
Right, but we're talking about...
How does this change the course? We just spent an hour telling how it changed. This could have changed wrestling. That's what we just talked
I guess, but sometimes when you talk about it, it really hits you.
Right.
I mean, that maybe...
That's the what-ifs we pick. We only pick what-ifs that would have really changed wrestling, I think.
Yeah, I mean, we don't do...
Because I still am interested in how Hulk Hogan and Shawn Michaels get along in the locker room.
Yeah, so I mean, but I don't want to rush through that.
No.
You know, I think that, to me, I think that's where to go.
That's where you start to get into some political stuff there.
Right.
You know, where does Vince fall with this guy that made him so much money?
Right.
Versus a guy that doesn't really make him as much money, but that he might like more.
Right. Does, yeah, I mean, we don't talk about what if Rodney King had won the NWA Junior Heavyweight title from Denny Brown at Starrcade 85.
Right.
Maybe we should.
Denny Brown deserves his due just like everybody else.
Right. And if you'd have told me 20 years ago, hey, Rocky King and Jeff Foxworthy going to be best friends and work on charities together, I'm like, no, they're not. Have you seen Jeff Foxworthy and Larry the Cable Guy's new thing on Netflix?
You know what? I'd been meaning to watch it, and then I realized I had to go take a crap, and I decided that I'd rather take a crap than watch the new Jeff Foxworthy and Larry the Cable Guy special.
Well, there you go.
But what did they talk about?
Well, I mean, I just watched the first. I haven't. I started watching it real late.
I would like Larry the Cable Guy more if he was authentic.
Right.
But he's not. He's a gimmick.
Right.
He's for those that don't know, he's a Yankee.
But I watched it. I just watched the first 30 minutes from Jeff Foxworthy.
Right.
Because, like, I bought, You Might Be a Redneck. A lot of that hits close to home.
That's funny stuff. Yeah, that's funny stuff. I don't deny that.
So when I say this, I was watching it for Jeff Foxworthy. I didn't even get to the Larry the Cable Guy part.
Right.
But for the same reason. I mean, when I heard, hey, Larry the Cable Guy, not really like that, I'm like, what?
Yeah.
It's a game. Jeff Foxworthy, he is what he is.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's him. Turned up to 11 maybe. But
Right.
Larry the Cable Guy is like, he was a DJ.
Yeah.
And that was one of the characters he did on their morning show.
You can't trust anybody in this world
It was
today.
intended to make fun of Southern people.
Well, let me tell you, do you know where you can find, if you're listening to this or you're watching this video on YouTube, do you know where you can find if you're wanting to know the real, authentic Mark Whitman and Heath Mullikin, you need to become a patron. Patreon.com/Double Dropkick for $1 a month. That's all it takes. We let you into our private Facebook group where we talk about stuff we don't talk about on this podcast. We talk about stuff that we don't talk about in the fastest growing wrestling group in the world, and that is on Facebook, The Wrestling You Grew Up With. You need to join that. There's a link in the show notes. There's also a link in the show notes if you're a person who has body hair and you need to shave. There's a link, Dollar Shave Club. Get your first month of razors free. Larry Funk. Terry Funk the other day. Terry Funk said the other day, he's like, I've had 22 retirement matches, but if I could come back today, I would. Audible.com, sign up for a month 3. You can get Terry Funk's Audible book for free, audio book for free. It's one of the best wrestling biographies. I'm watching you. We're at the end of the day. We're draining. I can't talk. I'm slurring my words. Mark's over here. That's why I needed to let Mark do most of the talking because it would keep him away. But in his defense, he went rafting yesterday. So, lots of good night. It's the first day of school. I don't know when you're listening to this. We're recording on the first day of school. It's been a crazy, crazy day. So maybe we just need to say we're on Twitter. I'm at Heath Mullikin.
I'm at the DDK Show.
And we appreciate everybody listening as we get closer and closer and closer to episode 200. Episode 200, we're going to be booking our wrestling careers. Did you see that on Twitter?
I did. That was good. I don't.
We're going to go back. We're going to graduate high school, book our wrestling career. Where would you train? What would you do? And how would you do it?
Okay.
Thanks for being excited. And I've got to book it. See, when I was.
That's good. That's a good one.
When I was a kid, okay, and we would pretend wrestle or whatever.
But now nobody's going to make suggestions.
I think when you get the best suggestion. Listen, anytime somebody suggests, hey, guys, talk about yourselves. Ding, 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 winner.
Well, we had a couple of good suggestions. We may touch on them, too.
Correct. And listen, it's not like we're stopping at episode 200.
No, you've given us quite a few good ideas to steal.
And man, I speak for both of us. You're going to be getting our best. We have both in our brains and bodies and schedules, we have recommitted to the Double Dropkick Show.
I agree.
And so I'm excited about that.
Because we hadn't been for a while.
Right. And I think I think you cutting the cord to WWE Network is just going to I feel no more pressure to talk about current wrestling.
I know.
I feel no pressure. Like, I'll go live pay-per-view nights in the Facebook group just for fun. But I feel no pressure. But anyway, what I was saying is when I was a kid doing pretend wrestling, the laws of physics didn't apply. So when I wrestled the Road Warriors, I would gorilla press Hawk and Animal. So when I booked for episode 200, I am going to 5'5" Heath Mullikin, 160 pounds.
160 pounds?
Back then.
Oh, okay.
The first thing they tell me is boy, you can't be no loser weight. You got to copyright. copyright.
He's the loser weight champion.
He's the loser weight champion.
That's good stuff. That was good stuff, man.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
I came up with it.
Yes. No, you didn't. Listen, if you're hankering for Czech Cola and a Czech Cola, stale popcorn, subpar wrestling, and sitting in a room, we're at a wrestling show.
It's like 100 degrees with with the rest of the combined crowd like a total of about 18 teeth.
Yeah. So there's like 70 people there. As soon as the intermission hits, there's like 10 of us left in the building because everybody else went outside to smoke.
You were like, where'd everybody go? Were they leaving? And I went, no, they all went outside to smoke.
And I'm like, oh, okay.
That one I did say. You did get, that one was mine. They all went out to smoke.
Yeah. I'm going to give you credit for that. But yeah, the wrestling, that's like, that was the embodiment of wrestling in Georgia.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's great. I love it, man.
So it's good stuff. So I lost my place in the closing of the show. I got off track. We did Twitter, Patreon, DoubleDropkick.com.
If you're booking your wrestling career,
yeah,
like we're going to book ourselves against the people that we're going to make ourselves basically the biggest stars in the history of wrestling.
I think that's what people expect, and is how do we get there?
Right. Okay.
Like, I don't think anybody's going to listen to it and expect.
And there I was doing jobs on WCW Saturday night for 8 years.
Boy, it was so awesome, man. I had a great program with the Gambler in WCW, But I'm thinking, as I've been thinking about it, just being absolutely honest, what kind of style would I realistically had to wrestle? Because here's a spoiler, here's a tease, okay? Spoiler alert. I'm not going to tell you anything you don't know. I've never been able to cut a flip. Never been. Swimming pool, trampoline. I've been able to cut a backwards flip, but not a front flip. Huh. And I can do like a snapmare front flip where you don't land it, but as far as see,
I used to be able to stand flat-footed and cut a flip and land on my feet. I could.
Frontwards or backwards?
Frontwards. I could not do a backflip.
What year was this?
Oh, I'm talking about when we were, I could do it at like 19 or 20.
Okay.
And I could cut flips when I wrestled.
Yeah, I
cut flips then.
See, so that's the thing. I would have, if going back, I would have had to learn to do that and be a high fly. And
you would have had to been a cruiserweight who couldn't work the cruiserweight style, essentially. Maybe there's a reason you didn't get into wrestling. I'm just going.
I think I could have been a Dean Malenko with personality.
You definitely could have been that.
Okay.
I don't think you could have played that Iceman.
No, but of course not. He was an Iceman because he didn't have any personality. That's the whole point of being the Iceman.
That's a good point. I'm tired.
I would have been Enzo Amore who could work like Dean Malenko. But
Enzo Amore and work like Dean Malenko.
But Enzo, without all the heat, by the time you're listening to this, he may have been fired. Listen, if you're a babyface worker and they put you in a shark above the ring, you got buried, buddy. You got buried.
They put you in a what?
Enzo Amore. You have been Enzo Amore for SummerSlam. It's Big Show versus Cass. Enzo is in the shark cage above the ring.
Why? What's he got to do with anything?
That's exactly right. He's the one in the feud.
Yeah.
And you're a wrestler, and you had to, it's like an after-school special.
That makes no sense.
I know it doesn't.
And this is why I canceled the WWE network.
Right, because when they put Chris Jericho in the deal, it's to keep him from interfering.
Right.
But it's like they're putting Enzo up there for his protection.
That's ridiculous. That's the dumbest thing
Right.
I've heard in a few months.
Right. Right.
Man,
Well, I'll try to do better next time. Hey, so thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. As always, for the Double Dropkick Show, I'm Heath Mullikin.
and I'm Mark Whitman.